I'm Joel Tapia. I'm an associate principal at Heritage Elementary School in the Chula Vista Elementary School District.
Tell me about any of your personal experiences with military-dependent students or family members.
At our school, we do have some military families, and one case in particular, we have one of our techs. Her husband is in the military, and he kind of goes back and forth between civilian work, and then he gets goes overseas for an extended period of time. And it's pretty amazing because when we started the school year, he's on our school site council, which is kind of the governing body of the school. And then he went overseas, but he still participates on our school site council through teleconferencing, through the phone line. So it's kind of neat because we're all huddled together and we say, "Hey, John, are you there?" And he's like, "Yeah," and then he'll comment. So it's neat that we've been able to continue to incorporate him in our decision-making body at the school, even though he's overseas. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think a really important aspect of military dependence being in schools is having a good relationship with their parents, even the service members. So.
Yeah, definitely.
How has the organization you're affiliated with addressed the needs of military-dependent students?
Well, I think definitely, like coming here, we have pretty good representation of administrators and an executive director, and I think now moving into administration, I'm more aware of this. I think when I was in the classroom, you're more focused on the needs of your students, but now I think I've seen as a district, we really do want to meet the needs of these students on a more of a systems level, and I think we're brainstorming ways of being able to first identify who those kids are, and then seeing how we can tap into our resources and the community members and the different groups and services, so we can provide that for the students. Also, I'm thinking kind of out loud, now that this is more conscious in my mind, thinking about how we can let our teachers know, like explicitly, these are your students and these are your families, and then kind of just making that communication explicit too, so that they know that they can give us feedback about, this is a situation I'm dealing with, and then having kind of a pipeline, like, okay, well, this is a person you can contact, this is an administrator you can work with, and then kind of just streamline some of those services. So I think being involved in some of these trainings kind of get our creativity flowing.
Good. What are some of the advantages and challenges that you've encountered when dealing with military dependent students?
I think, first of all, a challenge is just kind of identifying, the students. I think on campus, if I think of a typical day, we just see our students as students. And I think now that I know who some of my students are on campus who are in military families, I think that the trend is to want to kind of blend in, not make it an issue, not really stand out. You're just like everybody else. And I think it's trying to just feel some sense of being normal. But I think the first challenge is knowing who are those families. And now that I know who they are, I think some of the things that are challenges for me is knowing how to respond, because I'm not trained in those areas. My forte is education. So just the other day, one of the moms who's on our PTO, she was saying how her husband's on a ship overseas and how her son, he gets really emotional about it, and he comes and they have this kind of powwow every night, and sometimes they Skype with the dad, and it's really cool because I didn't know that this issue even existed, but once I was talking to him, I was able to kind of give a little bit of my advice, but I don't still feel necessarily competent in being able to direct them to the right place. So I think a challenge in dealing with these families is given more of the expert skill and knowledge. I mean, we can always, give a pat on the back and, kind of a sense of support, but really being able to direct them to something professional, I think that's been kind of a challenge. But I see through some of these collaborations, we're going to get better at that.
Definitely. Yeah. What do you think would be a good way to find out where these military children are and how many there are?
Actually, right now we're giving some of the surveys out to parents, and I think on there's a place where they actually say if they're a military family or not. I just spoke to our executive director who said that we have about 3,200 families in our school district, so I know there's a lot of them there. So I think just probably having more conversation about it again, bringing it to the surface, is a way for us to be able to identify them and then do something about it. But I'm a firm believer in having that dialogue. That kind of has to happen first, and then more of the steps and the plans come into place.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if I answered your question correctly.
No,
Kind of. I mean.
you did.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
you're.
Okay.
Are you familiar with any of the initiatives or special programs that target military dependents?
To be honest, I didn't have too much knowledge of it, but I mean, today I came away with like a list of like 20 websites and 30 different groups. So I do feel like now that I'm a lot more knowledgeable about it. I think in general, I know like there's YMCA and like groups like YMCA, they'll have different types of partnerships and collaborations. So I kind of knew about some groups in the general sense, but nothing specifically. But I do feel more prepared now about it.
What do you think is the top priority when you're dealing with a military connected child?
I think, well, for me as a associate principal, I think education is always kind of one of the top priorities. So definitely being able to help the student work through different emotions and situations so that they can learn. So definitely making sure that they're keeping up with their learning. That's a priority. Also the safety, of, the emotional well-being of the child. I think there's where we do need to bring in other resources to help, because I feel like we're always constantly thinking about how we can educate children. I feel like that's our expertise. And so we've become experts in differentiating and doing that and being able to meet the academic needs of students. But sometimes on the social emotional areas, I think we have still a need to get some help. So I feel that the top priority is academic, and I feel like we're doing a pretty good job of that. But I think in order to do a better job of meeting the whole need of the child, I think there's still some room for improvement and partnership collaboration.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for an example, with this child who, this mom told me about her child that, he cries at night and all that. I don't know what effect that has on him during the day, during the school day, but I'm sure it has to have some kind of effect on him. So I think, how do we help that child? And maybe, I'm not sure if that's our duty or specifically if we're like able to do that, but
Yeah.
I think somehow either indirectly we should be able to support that student.
Yeah. I mean, because one of the things that we've talked about in some of the interviews is getting past that, that quote unquote drama at home, because then it makes it easier to go to school and focus on education. And so you got to kind of move past get your mind off of that and get into school.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, sometimes we have to remind ourselves as teachers or educators that there are other factors going on, and although we can't control for like poverty or maybe like like a change of configuration of families or deployment, we can't control for those, but we have to be aware of them and they have to inform us. So not that we lower expectations, but we have to have that kind of understanding, I think, at the forefront of our thoughts. And I think we could still have conversations with our teachers about that, and if we know who those students are and those families, we can just kind of remind them that, if the student is not responding, then just have this in the back of your mind to inform you as you teach. And so I think it does make a difference knowing that. But yeah, you're right.
How do you think the public education has responded to the military dependents in their family?
I think, public education probably has done a better job of responding to it where there's more military families. I think in San Diego, because there's more need and we have more of a military presence, it becomes more of a priority. So I'm kind of curious how areas where there's military families but not as a strong a presence, how they're responding to it. But like, to me, being at this Living in the New Normal workshop is a perfect example of the things that we should be doing and continue to do, because I have a zillion things that I'm working on, and this kind of pulled me out of my element, so to speak, but I'm reminded about how it is a part of what I'm doing,
Yeah.
But I think our focus is on other things sometimes. So I think here in San Diego, I think we're doing a good job. Yeah.
What are some of the valuable lessons that you've learned from this workshop this weekend?
For one, I kind of learned that there's a niche here. Like I know there's military families. I know that those changes in deployment and things that happen, they do affect the child, but I never realized that there was like literature specifically on that. So like today, or through this training, we received like 3 or 4 books that had very specific like advice on these situations, and there's people who are thinking about this specific topic, and I never really knew that there was like literature around military families, for example, and the changes that they go through. So to me, it's like just an awareness that I didn't even know about before. And I think I'm taking that away. I'm kind of a curious person, so now I'm probably going to Google it or look more into it. But I think just the issue never really emerged in my mind. And I think now I know that this is kind of like, there's a specific need here, and so I want to know more about it.